Whoa, we are live. We are live. And I'm coming at you with five. Haven't said that in a while. Welcome again to another edition of Gavin Reshaw Presents. This random topic two Thursdays here on my channel, Gboo2786. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. Come on in the chat. Come on in the chat. We are blessed to have always our special guest and our friend and brother, Shawn James, who is here. And I'm about to add Shawn in a second. But you guys, let's see. There is Shawn. Hey, Shawn, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
All right, man. Good to see you. You've been doing great?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
All right. That's what's up, man. So I hope the new year will be as successful as 2020 has been for you, if it has been successful. I think, as bad as 2020 has been for overall with everybody, just the things that we've dealt with, if we come out of 2020 alive, we're all going to be seen as legends.
Yeah.
In the next by the next generation. So, for Shawn, how have you been, man?
I'm all right. I'm good.
All right. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
No, none at all. Just want to hope to just get through this year in one piece. I cut my nose, but I'm dealing with that right now. So,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, and I'm still doing a show, but with just trying to deal with this cut right now.
Well, you want to get a
No,
Band-Aid or something?
no, I don't need a Band-Aid. I'm all right. I'm all right.
All right. I just don't want no gusher on the screen and
No, it's
like
not gonna.
Evil Dead.
No, it's not gonna be Crimson Mask or anything like that. Just.
Uh, Yeah, we rolling in. We're rolling in. It's 2020, a year in review. That's our special topic. You guys also please donate to the Cash App, Gavin Reshaw Esquire, Gavin Reshaw Esquire, or Google Pay, gavin.grich1@gmail.com. And also support our brother Shawn on his channel, his YouTube channel, Shawn James. And also, he has his books that he is selling. He's trying to get some last minute book sales in for the new year.
Yeah.
You guys can buy from him directly through his website, through his contact. Shawn, you want to tell everybody?
You can get all my books on Amazon. You can get them in paperback and Kindle format. You can also get them on Smashwords, the iBook store. You can also get some of them on Google Play. And some books like Eternal Night are available on Kindle Unlimited for a limited time. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read them for free.
Okay, cool. Yes. You can get books like the Don Haynes series, which we have, The Man with Nothing to Lose, also Eternal Night. And he also has the book, one of the books that I love to read is The Man Crisis. I'm actually reading that tonight. In the meantime, I don't know, most people are not going to be going out like talking about it because of the pandemic, but even in my area, I don't know about you, but do you guys deal with a lot of gunshots that go off with New Year's?
Sometimes we deal with it in certain neighborhoods. We deal with it, and other ones we don't. But in my old neighborhood, we really didn't have to deal with that too much. And I haven't seen it here, but in other neighborhoods, sometimes you'll see it.
Yeah. Yeah, we get it out here in New Orleans all the time. I mean, people, of course, are popping fireworks, which I don't have a problem with. I love that myself, looking at that. I got a question for everybody in the chat. How would you sum up 2020? What would you say about 2020? Computer Robots just said Shawn is killing it out of the park with the Man Crisis, and I will support you wherever you go, man. So shout out to Computer Robots. Shout out to him. Let me say, I guess, because Computer Robots asked the question. He asks, "Hey Gavin, can you do more mysteries on the death of more celebrities? I love what you did with Sam Cooke." Well, I'm glad you bring it. Well, it's interesting that you're bringing that up because now with 2020, how 2020 started, our topic is 2020, a year in review. Things started on a sour note, of course, with we talked about all the wildfires that were happening, like even in Australia. That was one thing. But really, for us in the community, the biggest death we were hit with was the death of our brother, the legend, the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. Of course, Kobe Bryant died along with his daughter, Gigi, and several other innocent passengers on that helicopter ride out in California. And the way that he was treated, even in death, by the media and press, set a tone for how Black men we're going to be treated. I mean, we've always been treated that way, but it really put the pedal to the metal, as we say, because things got accelerated in rapid succession. But what's interesting is I want to share this with everyone. Dr. Boyce Watkins did a show yesterday about how Kobe Bryant was about to leave Nike and start his own sneaker brand. Now, in relation to Sam Cooke, I don't know too much about. I know that he had. Uh, I know for sure that Kobe, I believe, had either had a copyright or trademark issue that was going on, if I'm not mistaken, with Nike. Is that right, Shawn? If you remember reading something like that.
I think he had a trademark issue or a copyright issue. Usually, these trademarks are wealth building assets, so
Most
people would have
definitely.
a excuse me. But usually when they have a trademark issue, that means there's big money on the table, and with a guy like Kobe Bryant, that would have been a good couple of $1 billion, and that's something companies like Nike wouldn't want to lose.
Most definitely. And also, you think about it. Just don't want to run these. I got to run these ads in order to show this article. If you think about it in relation to Sam Cooke, in relation to Otis Redding, the live stream that I did, Shawn. I don't know if you saw that one.
I,
Sam,
I
go
don't
ahead.
think I saw that one yet.
Yeah, well, I did tell you about the two documentaries to watch. I don't know if you checked them out yet.
With
Yeah,
no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts.
That's a gunshot right there. I heard.
wow.
Um, I've been hearing them lately, so you might hear them on the screen here. But yes, what I was saying with Sam Cooke, of course, I talked about his story, his life, and the stuff that was going on. You relate that to now how Kobe Bryant was starting the Mamba brand. Now, I don't have any evidence to show that Nike killed Kobe Bryant and that those people in that helicopter. I wouldn't go that far. But what I will say is that it's always interesting when you look at someone like a Michael Jackson, a Prince, who, of course, we know Michael had the Beatles catalog and he also owned half of Sony ATV,
Yeah,
which is the largest music publisher in the world. They talked about how Michael was broke. I don't know how he could be broke if you own an asset like that. Perhaps you didn't have the liquid cash like he did in the 80s, but he certainly, if he could have sold that record or if he even publishing it, he was given some type of income, significant income, where he could have put all three of his children in college and also gave some money to fund historically black colleges and universities, which is what he did.
yeah,
And Sam Cooke, of course, we know his story about how he tried to form his own music publishing company and was killed mysteriously. Otis Redding, even Jimi Hendrix died mysteriously. So this stuff doesn't surprise me. But it says here in the article, this is from CBS News, Shervin Pishavah, an entrepreneur and co-founder of Virgin Hyperloop, revealed via Twitter on Tuesday that Brian had spoken to him in late 2019 about potentially starting his own sneaker company that would have been called Mamba. Now, he says, I met with Kobe in December of 2019. Kobe died in February, if I remember correctly. Kobe wasn't happy with Nike and was going to leave it in 2020. Kobe was going to start Mamba, a shoe company owned by players. He passed away weeks later. What he was about to do in business was going to eclipse his sports career. That is huge. And he actually has the designs for those shoes for his independent company. Now, I think of something like this. I'm just reading it. There were witnesses to this meeting, like Gina Ford, who manages Usain Bolt. Can everybody see this?
yeah. I can see it.
So that's the shoes. Anything attached with Kobe Bryant's name was going to make money.
Yeah,
That's no question. And now we're hearing, I don't know if you know, but Master P and uh, Baron Davis reportedly are trying to buy, is it Adidas, if I'm not mistaken?
Adidas or Reebok one.
Well, they're under
There's
the
another.
same umbrella.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so how is that going to look? Are they going to own a piece of it or are they going to own the whole thing? Shawn, what are your thoughts?
well, my thoughts are it's kind of strange that every time you have a black man getting towards building wealth, he winds up losing his life. So it seems like in all the cases you're pointing out, Prince, Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, it seems like just as they're getting close to acquiring wealth,
And
that they wind up mysteriously passing away. Now, I think there's a great fear in America of black men getting wealth because there's a big difference between rich and wealthy. A rich guy is like these ball players who get a contract, but they're still working for a league like the NBA. But wealth is when you have fixed tangible assets that
right,
can have value over time and can be passed down from one generation to the next. And a person with wealth has a lot of economic power because they just don't have money power as related to dollars. They also have tangible assets that have a value, and these intellectual properties, they have tremendous value in our society, and these intellectual properties are a major asset to hold. I mean, Kobe Bryant had he was taking control over his name, taking control over his brand, and that was something Michael Jordan never did. I mean, Michael Jordan
right,
just sat there and he collected royalties from Nike. I mean, he's rich from Nike, but Kobe
right.
Bryant is getting ready to own his own name and his own brand. And that's similar to what happened with Sam Cooke, Jimi Hendrix, Prince,
Otis Redding,
Otis Redding, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson,
James Brown. Yeah.
these men controlled their own money, they controlled their own brand, they controlled their own image. And that's scary for a lot of people in these institutions like Hollywood and corporate America, because this is a black person who is no longer dependent on their institution for their bread. They're actually making the factory to make their own bread. And that means they can't make money off these guys. And that's something that they're afraid of, that it will inspire others to start talking about generating wealth. Because when you start talking about generating wealth, that means you're in controls of the means of production, and you're cutting out these white middlemen, and these white middlemen no longer have control over you. And that's something they really want, because they want to be able to get wealth off of these people's intellectual properties. They want to control their catalogs, they want to control the publishing. And as a publisher myself, I understand the value of that, because when you have a catalog, you can take it from printer to printer, and that means that you own the intellectual
Mhm.
property. So, and you control the content, and you can take that content wherever you want, and you can make revenue at each aspect. For example, I can go to different publishers. I can go to Apple, I can go to Kindle, I can go to Barnes and Noble, and I'm not sitting there dependent on one company to give me a little bit of royalties. I can go out here and take it to multiple platforms like Google Play, iBookstore, Smashwords, and I can generate revenue from all those platforms because I control the copyright to the property. I control the trademarks. That's a tangible asset that's
It's a
generating wealth.
license to print money.
Yeah, and
It's
these
a
guys,
right.
they have that on an international scale. So that's a major asset, and that's something that many in the world fear. They fear black men having that type of economic power, because if those black men start to use that power to enter the political arena, and this is something your entertainers don't do, because rich people don't think about politics. They fear that these black men, when they get their economic power, they're going to start thinking about political power and start using those tangible wealth to not only go after politics and creating policy, but also building a legacy for the next generation. And that's something they don't want to see. They don't mind you being rich and blowing all your money and having none at the end of your life. They don't mind that. But if you're wealthy, that means you not only have a lasting legacy, one, but you also have wealth that's passed down, especially if you have sons, to the next generation. And that wealth builds momentum over the next generation, and it has influence and power from generation to generation.
Yeah. Well, it when you couple that, well, let me just give you a history lesson too. When Michael Jackson bought that catalog in 1985, he actually was supposed to be in Australia. He was in Australia when he purchased it because the auction was going on there. And as part of purchasing it, he made an appearance on a telethon for charity for children. Now, Paul McCartney had an interest in buying it, but he wanted to buy it with Yoko Ono. And Yoko Ono has been reported saying that she was not interested in buying it, and she was the one, along with John Johnson, owner of BET, of not BET, excuse me. John Johnson owned Ebony and Jet magazine at that time. He also encouraged Michael to buy it. But what I've heard, even from Dick Gregory, who I knew, in his statements, his other handlers, I guess his white attorneys and other people around him, told him not to buy that. Uh, but the main interest why Michael bought it was because of the black artists that were in that catalog. You're talking about Little Richard, Sly and the Family Stone, the Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. I believe you also had in there some of Elvis's songs, his father-in-law, the Beatles in it, of course, as well, which was very lucrative, and also Nat King Cole. So Michael owns the copyright to the Christmas song, as well as Santa Claus is Coming to Town, because he also had Bruce Springsteen's catalog. And do you know how much just those two songs, Santa Claus and Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, are worth, and how much they made even this past Christmas?
Those are worth hundreds of millions of dollars when you think about the reprint rights and the digital rights. Michael was just a visionary. He's a visionary as related to business. So he was just smart enough to see the value of these songs, but it's like Paul McCartney and them had the opportunity, but they just didn't understand.
And he didn't buy it. And even McCartney said, well, I didn't feel like buying something that I worked on. Well, why are you bitching and complaining when Michael buys it? Because if you had an opportunity, this is America, you had enough money. If you wanted to buy it, go ahead and buy it. But I looked at it too. Paul McCartney, he's a music publisher as well. He owns a lot of other people's songs. From my understanding too, Mick Jagger, and I may be wrong, I don't want to say the wrong information, but it's my understanding that he owns James Brown's catalog, which doesn't surprise me. That's why he produced that James Brown movie, Get On Up, with Chadwick Boseman. And we'll talk about him in a minute. But Michael also, what a lot of people don't know, in the 90s, he, along with Stan Lee, were in talks of purchasing Marvel Comics. He was also trying to purchase Universal Pictures in the early 2000s, and that's when he got hit with the child molestation charges. So if you would imagine, had he bought Marvel Comics is owned by Disney now. Universal, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know who owns them. If it's under Comcast, I know they have ties with NBC and all of those channels like USA and Bravo Network and stuff like that. But just imagine the amount of money. He practically would have been a trillionaire, for all intents and purposes, and there would have been nothing he could not have done. He would have competed with many of these major networks and companies. He would have he had the clout to do so because he was a very popular person. He was loved across the world. There are people who don't even have access to television and know who Michael Jackson is. Children that have not been born yet, Shawn, know who Michael Jackson is.
Yeah.
They know who Prince is. So those were some very powerful men. And, Kobe Bryant's, I can see it would be is on the same level where he was known worldwide. Could they have done something like this? I wouldn't put it past them. I'll just say that much. I'm not going to accuse anyone because I don't have the evidence, but I mean, we know as black men, we know as people that this stuff happens.
We do. And just that Michael was a brilliant visionary as related to business, because I see the same opportunities myself. I mean, when I studied the publishing industry, I understood that if I create a character like, say, a John Haynes or a character like Isis, I own that character. I own that intellectual property, and I own all the rights to it. Now, if I go here and sell it to a publishing house, they would be able to get a license to go out here and publish that, but then they would also be able to control things as related to it. But the whole thing is that when you own it, you control all that character as a property, and you can license it out, you can sell it out, and you're generating wealth. And the whole thing is, a lot of people were mad at Michael Jackson, but I don't see why anybody would be mad at Michael Jackson. He was just a better businessman than many of the white businessmen out there. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were upset, was They expected him to just be a dumb entertainer who would just go out there and sing. They didn't expect him to have that business savvy to understand how the business works and how to generate wealth for himself. I mean, as I see it, if I'm making these songs, I'm going to want to own these songs, and I'm going to want to control my catalog. And if I see other catalogs out here, I would go out here and buy them. And I think Marvel Comics would have been in better hands with Michael than with Disney right now, because at least with Michael, he really cared about children and he wanted to make family entertainment. And it would have been in better hands than what we have right now, because Disney has practically destroyed Marvel. And that's
And Star Wars, with the
and Star
exception of the
Wars.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, they've made a mess of it, but Michael probably would have made sure that these things stayed true because he wanted to share them with generations of children, because that's Michael loved children. So he
I
just
just
was
want to help the children.
so he would have probably been a great businessman if he had been given an opportunity. And that's something a lot of people don't want to see about black men, is seeing that we are great visionaries and we are great businessmen behind the scenes, because that's something they don't want us to see. They want us to just sit there and be the entertainer, but they don't understand there's a whole business to it. And I went into this in one of my books called All About Maryland, where I talk about all the aspects of the business of screenwriting and controlling your rights and stuff like that. And the whole thing is nobody wants to see that from a black man. All they want to do is see you sing and dance and make the money off you, but they don't want you to start having aspirations for building wealth and having tangible wealth that you can pass down to your children. They
They
don't want
want you to stay dumb.
Yeah, they want you to be a big dummy who goes out there and sings and dances, tells the jokes, but they don't want to see you talking about, hey, I want exclusive rights in the contract, or I want to be able to get a cut of the box office. They don't want to see you acting like guys like Jack Nicholson and Robert Downey Jr., who own a piece of their movies. I mean, Jack Nicholson made $60 million off the 1989 Batman. Robert
Right.
Downey Jr. never has to work again in his life from all the MCU
And
movies.
how many chances in life did Downey Jr. get?
He had
Uh,
multiple chances, and
Multiple
and
chances,
Drew
stuff that
Carey
black men could never get.
and Drew Carey, the host of The Price is Right, ABC practically paid that man over $100 million. He said he never had to work again in his life, but he does The Price is Right just because Bob Barker offered it to him. I mean, he said the show, Drew Carey show in the 90s, they gave him a contract that was 7 years straight. And he said, even though the show was tanking in the ratings, he never had to work again based on the money that contract made, because he not only got paid for the show, he also got a piece of the show. So these are the type of deals that are made, and they generate wealth for a lot of these white entertainers, but they don't want to see a black entertainer start talking about things like rights, talking about licensing, talking about marketing. They just want you to sit there and be the entertainer who makes them laugh, but they don't want to see you be the businessman who talks about how he's going to get a percentage of the profits of the property that he created.
All right, computer robots said back then pre-civil rights and today's world. Who do you think is better at running a business, black men or white men? And do you think sometimes they limit their potential?
Well, I think that if black men were given a chance, they could practically show that they could run a business on the same level as many of these white executives in Hollywood. And we see that with guys like Bill Cosby. We see that with Michael Jackson when he was alive. And we see that with guys like the late Prince. And we also see it even with a guy like myself. If we are given an opportunity, we can go out here and build a competitive business.
And
Unfortunately,
it's done now. Look
yeah,
at, not to interrupt you, but I mean, look at Master P.
yeah.
You
Master
could say,
P. Master
you
P
could,
owns everything.
right. Ice Cube. I mean, I
Yeah.
know you have your issues with Ice Cube and Master P and hip
No, I have
hop.
no issues with Master P. I love Master P because he's a
Well, Ice
brilliant
Cube,
entrepreneur.
yeah.
Ice Cube, I have issues with because he doesn't understand politics. But Master
But
P is Ice Cube is a good businessman
right.
too. But Master P is even better. I mean, he owns
Yeah.
everything.
Master P, I mean, look, his movie sucked. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie to you. Like, I got the hook up, and I got the hook up too. I never watched any of those films directly, but the great thing I could say about Master P is that he's a self-made millionaire. Although everybody, like I was telling Bernard yesterday, and I'm sure Bernard is watching, he's a self-made millionaire. He started from nothing, but with the support of his family and friends, he was able to amass an empire, and he put New Orleans on the map. He's actually, his movies and stuff he all owned. He gave Eddie Griffin flat $1 million just so he could produce Foolish, and
Yeah,
Foolish beats the Phantom Menace. Their opening night. You know, he also had his own. Remember Masterpiece Theater that used to be on pay per view. So I give respect, and he's also paved the way for his children to
yeah.
have jobs. So I think if given, I mean, it can be. It's been done already, even before the civil rights movement. When you look at the black inventors that you had black business owners even back then. I mean, Black Wall Street was a perfect example. You had black post office and black hospitals. They were making money, more money than that entire city and state alone, to the point that they were actually doing deals with foreign nations. France even talked with them about doing international trade. So black people have always dominated in business. You had black. I mean, of course, you had Madam C.J. Walker, but before her, you even had a black man who owned a part of who had a house in Central, was now Central Park Avenue. A black man that's wealthy. You might know. I can't think of his name offhand, but there's always been black millionaires before. They just try and keep that from you. But
they they downplay it. They don't want you to hear about it because they fear that people may wind up getting inspired by them and have plans to actually do what they do. So they don't really want the message coming out about black millionaires and black millionaires because they don't want us to know that there are black people out here who are not only rich like these entertainers, but had wealth and still have wealth from generation to generation.
right. And let me just look that up. This is the first black millionaire. So Madam C.J. Walker is seen as the first female black billionaire, but millionaire, excuse me. But there is a first black male. His first black millionaire was a guy by the name of Jeremiah Hamilton, and he was a stockbroker. I don't know if they have a picture of Mr. Hamilton. There's no surviving image, but he was born a decade. He was born. It says here he was noted as the only black millionaire in New York by James McCune Smith about a decade before the American Civil War, and he was a shrewd financial agent, amassing a fortune of $2 million, which by 2018, listen to this, was the equivalent of $250 million by the
Wow.
time of his death in 1875. I'm going to share that on the screen for you guys so y'all could take a look at it. But there's no image of him, unfortunately. But you look this up on Wikipedia. His name is Jeremiah Hamilton.
Yeah.
Of course, he was a victim of racism. Uh, there were white men that were seeking to lynch Hamilton. They broke into his house, but were turned away with only liquor, cigars, and an old suit by his wife, Aliza, after she said her husband was not home. Keep in mind, most of these lynchings, Shawn, and you know this, may know this as well, they were not done against poor blacks. Of course, poor blacks were victims, but it's also their businessmen that they really targeted. Since we're talking about that, the black businessmen uh, that were affected by, that were the targets of lynchings. The Lewis Allens, for instance. Lewis Allen was killed out in Mississippi. I think he was a former World War II veteran, and he owned some parcels of land, and I think he was in the lumber industry, if I'm not mistaken. And to this day, they think that a state senator out in that area was involved in his death because they wanted that land.
Yeah.
So it's not far off. That's Lewis. That's Lewis Allen right there.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me because when I did my research, I've always noticed that the terrorism of the Klan was always tied to economics, and it was always tied to taking control of the black economy because a lot of these racists they wanted to control blacks economically, and their terrorism was about taking black economic power away. So they would always target black businessmen, black businesses, and they would want to terrorize them so that they could have blacks dependent on white businesses. And that was one of the things that they have the great fear is if black people get economic power, they'll get political power. And some racists have this great fear if black people get that type of power, they may start oppressing whites in the same way they oppress blacks. So racism has always had an economic component. And that's why they don't want to see blacks start building wealth. They don't mind black people being rich and blowing their money on foolishness like these other celebrities you see out here with the bling and the cars and the gold chains and the expensive clothes, because they're getting money on that and they're also getting people to consume on that. So they're making a profit on that. But when you have black people building businesses where they have tangible wealth, that is something they don't want you to see. And they want to be able to suppress that. So that's why we had the terrorism of the Ku Klux Klan, where they were out here attacking black people. And again, this was all strategic because they wanted to go after these businessmen and these people with business acumen, because they didn't want black people to be encouraged to go out here and go build businesses. And that was one of the things that they wanted to do. That's why we had Black Wall Street bombed and practically attacked, as I see it, as an act of war, and Rosewood attacked and destroyed, because those towns were an economic base. And if they take away the economic base, the surviving blacks get conditioned to believe that if they go out here and try to build something, that they will be, one, have to deal with white reprisal, and others have the fear that they have to be dependent on whites for their survival. So they don't want to see black people building economic power like that. And that's why they would target blacks that way. So it's one of the reasons that, again, we have a big whole thing with this Klan terrorism and violence, because they fear black wealth more than anything out here.
Most definitely. And what I will add to that is that's why it's very important for us to stay educated and learn about building a business. Is why I say it's so important, because you're going to be as alpha. If you're an alpha male, for the time being, you may want to work for somebody to build yourself up, but that's not something that you want to do for the rest of your life.
Definitely
Men
not.
want to be men and don't want to wake up when somebody else tells them to, or spend their money when somebody else tells them to. They want to be able to go and do things like that when they want to. They certainly don't want to be robots. And I learned that especially when I went on a job interview a few years ago with this law firm. And I'll just tell you a quick story. I was going to be interviewed by Morris Barr, and I was running late. I informed them I was running late because I had I was in the middle of a CLE. So that's why I was late. And I told them that the CLE is our continuing learning education that attorneys have to say. So I told them and I called them and I walked in, and the guy who was interviewing me said, "Well, it took you long enough," or something along those lines. And I said, "Well, sir, I already called and told you guys I was running late before my scheduled time. And that was because I could not cancel my continuing learning education. So I said I was going to run a few minutes late, and they said it was okay. But that moment stuck with me because I never forgot, how I was talked to. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to be working like this for the rest of my life. I'd rather work for myself and struggle than work under somebody that would be a dictator. Not to say that working with under people is bad. It's not. I work for a company myself. As an attorney, I work for other clients, so I am working under someone, but I can set my schedule and my standards and my hours just like you can. So those are always good things. So I don't want to, I would not want to be in a situation like that for the rest of my life. But
Yeah, but usually, the way I see work is you get a job to build a business, and the ultimate goal is to have your own business. I mean, working at a company is nice, and I actually like working at companies now and again. I mean, even though I lost some jobs, it's nice to get that steady paycheck and have that money. But you need to have that money have a purpose. I mean, it's not just for you to just sit there and just pay bills and pay other people. You want to pay yourself too. So when I would go out here and work jobs, like when I did AmeriCorps and I did my job at CUNY, I came in from day one with a plan towards building something. So when I first came to each of those jobs, I had a goal of working towards publishing books and building things like SJS Direct. I mean, when I went to CUNY and I had that office assistant job and working in the library, my goal was, when I had my spare time, to start working on building the SJS Direct imprint, working towards getting the tools to build the SJS Direct imprint, and getting stuff together. I mean, as I see it, a job is just a stepping stone towards building a business. And usually you want to build that business as you're working on the job. Yeah, you're working on the job, you're making money, but that money needs to be put towards a purpose. You're supposed to save, as I see it, maybe $200-300 a month towards that purpose if you can with your bills, and and get that money together, and then start setting goals for where you want to go with whatever business venture you do. You can do this on the side. I mean, I've seen guys out here, they did YouTube on the side. I've seen guys do
Right.
books on the side. I've seen guys out here do toys and comics on the side. I see a lot of guys, they have a lot of different ventures that they do, but eventually you want to get to the point where you have this business going and you can have this job where you're doing, okay, you're doing a 9 to 5 as long as you want to do it. But once you get the business going and get it moving, then you have something that you own and eventually you have control over. And you're not just sitting there working for somebody else and wasting, as I see it, time out of your life. Because as I see it, time in life is extremely precious and you want to make every moment count. So why would I want to spend 30 years of my life working for somebody else and making them rich, and then they don't care about me, when I can go out here and do something for myself? So as I see it, the job that you get, yeah, it's nice to have a job, and I want a job. I mean, that's one thing I've always wanted to have, so I can have a steady stream of income. But again, the ultimate goal is to get out here, get your own business, get your own thing where your own money is flowing to you, and get to the point where you own something and it's generating not only a revenue stream for you, but it's building tangible wealth, like intellectual properties, or building wealth like these tangible properties. You want something that's making money for you, and you're not just sitting there working to make money for somebody else.
Definitely. You want to be able to build your own empire and also something to pass down to the next generation, your children, that they may be able to manage. I mean, uh, and unfortunately, I don't think, especially within something, I think in the baby boomers, they forgot about all of that when they were coming up. They when they were all happy and excited when integration came about and some of the ills of Jim Crow and the overt racism that came up, they were happy to get rid of that, but they didn't. In the end, they didn't leave anything for their children. They didn't leave any legacy. Uh, some of our inheritance, what we're supposed to be getting, is not there for us. Like having monies that we can be readily available to buy our own land, to build our own homes, and even continue businesses. Hell, to even start uh, our own military if we wanted to. That's stuff that we don't have. And I look at it, now I think 2020, and I think this is a positive thing. Some people are waking up. I think certainly now black people are waking up more. We got more black people buying firearms now, which is a good thing, because in this society you don't want to be, especially now in this era, I would not want to be without a firearm. They accounted for the new ownership in that. I think a lot of people are now waking up to starting their own businesses. I saw a lot of that more. So certainly, I think that the tide is changing. It took us a long time, but I think some of us are slowly getting there. And I think the men in particular are they want to be men. You know,
Yeah, a lot of men woke up over this pandemic. I mean, once you break out of a routine, you start to take a real critical examination of your life, where it's going. And I think a lot of black people they're listening to new black media, and they're hearing us talk about doing more with your life than just sitting here and being a consumer. And they listen to us talk about being producers, having control over things, and going out here and building something of your own. And that's something that I'm glad to see more black people taking a moment to think about, and thinking more about owning something of theirs instead of just being like the baby boomers who all they wanted was social acceptance. More black people are thinking, I don't need acceptance from anybody. We need to go out here, get our own, and have control over our own. So when I look at black people, there's a lot of positives with with the pandemic. Is that black people are now looking no longer to be looking for social acceptance and looking for dependence from whites and non-blacks. They're looking to get their own, and they're also understanding that they have to defend their own. So that's why we see this rise in firearm ownership, because they understand that there are no coalitions. We are on our own out here. And if we're on our own out here, we not only have to build our own, we have to defend our own, and we have to understand that the only people who are going to take care of us are ourselves. And I'm hoping that another thing we come out of this is we start to see more black people working together, because we need to see more people working towards unity, because that's how we build a real black community like we had in the old days before the civil rights movement. And we need that type of community and unity to really start making real power moves towards building wealth and furthering things like the black agenda politically.
Sure. Most definitely. Now, my next topic, of course, this is 2020. I call it the year of WAP. We've been surrounded by that. Very interesting. You did a video about Megan Thee Stallion and her comments. I haven't had a chance to do a video on it, but what I found that was interesting is that Cardi B, the singer and lyricist, well, I shouldn't say singer, but the rapper on the song, she was actually doing this video with WAP playing, and that's her daughter in the back. And when her daughter came in, she turned it off hurriedly. Of course, you have Megan Thee Stallion. I just saw on ABC Radio they said Cardi B, Beyonce, and Megan Thee Stallion saved us this year. Uh, what do you think of? I guess, and I have a good idea of what your opinion is, but uh, how do you think she will react when her daughter hears this when she gets older? Like this is kind of, it was funny when Snoop Dogg was trying to defend was criticizing her, well, criticizing WAP and Snoop Dogg and his history, of course, where Snoop had the women on the chains, taking them to the MTV Music Awards. I remember that clearly. Of course, these were, I know someone who was actually offered the opportunity to do that. Those were some models. Obviously, they got paid to do it, but I guess you're going to have to look at that in the long run, looking back at it 10, 15 years, and I'm sure with some regret. Uh, Shawn, uh, I call it the year of WAP because we've been dominated with WAP. And of course, you've heard Megan Thee Stallion's comments where she said that men are not ready for a woman with WAP.
Well,
I,
I look at the year of so-called WAP, and I see it as an escalation of the mainstreaming of prostitute culture in the black community, because this music is primarily not targeted at black girls. And the whole thing is, they know the old African proverb is true that states a race can rise no higher than the moral position of its women. And if your women are out here promoting prostitute culture, your race's direction is going straight into the sewer. So when I look at this being the so-called year of WAP, that's a really, really sad thing, because I remember back in 2001 when Halle Berry got the Oscar for Monsters Ball, and it mainstreamed prostitute culture in the black community. It led to the black community going on a tremendous decline, and we saw that decline in most of our media, and we saw it on social media with the twerking and all of the fights. And this is a further escalation of it, and it just makes our black women look really bad. And what's really ironic is all these women who talk about promoting this idea of empowerment, when you look at their household, you see how hypocritical they are. I mean, you look at your Beyonce who talks about these so-called empowered women, yet she's submissive to Jay-Z, and he talks about how he doesn't want his daughter being called a B and an H, and after he had his daughter. So same thing with Cardi B. You can push this stuff out here for our daughters to sit here and consume, but you don't want your daughter to go out here and be a part of that. And that's just, as I see it, just one of the most reprehensible and immoral things that I've ever seen. Because when I go out here and I produce a piece of media, whether it be ISIS or John Haynes or an Easting, if I want to, when I design something, it's something that I want other kids to go out here and enjoy, and it's something that I want to promote, something positive that I would want my own kids to follow. So if I put values in a book, I would want those kids to follow those values, and I would think about it when I would write a book. What would my kids, if I had them, see if I produce a piece of content? So I would sit there and say, I don't want to put out something that I wouldn't want my own kids to follow, because I follow the biblical principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I wouldn't want to go out here and produce a piece of content that degrades our brothers or our sisters, because I wouldn't want to have my own children following something that was destructive. So when I look at the hypocrisy of a Cardi B, it's just deeply troubling, because she's sitting there talking about WAP, but she won't let her own daughter listen to her own songs. I mean, whenever I write a book, I would want my kids to go out here and be able to read it if I had kids. And I want to write books that I can share with my own family, even though some of my family doesn't like some of the stories I write.
I mean, her daughter, I'm sure, is has already heard that song played, because her when she gets even when she gets older, if she's in school, her friends are going to point it out.
Yeah. And when I create content, I want it to be where I can share it with everyone and not feel bad about it. I mean, whenever I do a story, I'm like, I want to be able to say, okay, you can go ahead and read this. You don't have to worry about anything in it. And that's the way I believe of making content. I don't want to make content that I think I can't show my kids or share with my children if I had them. I would want them to be able to say, hey, you want to read one of my ISIS or John Haynes books that I wrote all those years ago? Hey, take a look at them. No problem. Not feel bad about anything in them. That's the way I would want to do it, because I want to be transparent. I mean, but when I look at these entertainers, and they've been doing this for years, they won't let their kids watch these rap songs. They send their kids to private schools, and they keep them away from that message in their music that degrades black women and teaches black men to be criminals. They send their kids to private school and have them listening to one type of message, but then they want our kids to imbibe the poison and destroy their lives. And that's the hypocrisy that Hollywood has had for the last, I say, 30, 40 years as it relates to black media. And that's something that we really need to call these entertainers out on, because if you won't let your own children listen to it, then you shouldn't produce it.
Wanted to do a video on this. I won't play the video, but if you all have seen this, this has been making its rounds on the internet. We won't spend too much great deal on it, but in talking about the year of WAP, this woman, this African American woman, recorded this on Instagram, twerking in front of her son, and I believe it's his cousins, if I'm not mistaken, or little friends. And either way, it's not good. I don't know if but I'm sure that's someone that she's close with. Those are kids that they're close with, and she was twerking in the bathroom, recording it. That was one thing, but then she proceeded to take her pants off, and she started twerking in her panties, and the boys came up, smacking her butt, throwing the finger. And it's been making its rounds on the internet. People have talked about it. I don't know for the life of me why people would post incriminating behavior on the internet, um, even if not incriminating, just things that are inappropriate that they know are going to get aroused. And I kind of answered my own question: is that it's for attention. People do are chasing clout, and no matter what the consequences are, they feel good about smashing up their likes and getting their follows. And I'm not going to sit here and say and act like God Almighty to say that I have not done things wrong in my past and made mistakes. But that shit right there, she's lucky right now, if they have not, that she doesn't get a visit from Child Protective Services if they if and when they identify her, because, and I mean, that was, you can call it borderline child abuse, uh, by looking at that. I would not. I could tell from looking at that. Let me start over. I could tell from looking at that the father wasn't in the home, that there wasn't a male presence that was there, because I think a man would have not allowed, would have cut that off immediately. We wouldn't have seen anything like that if Daddy is home. Uh, just to see them doing that, and uh, it was disturbing to say none the least. So and the kids flipping the bird too around her. That's another thing. I just saw a picture of Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys and their son, and they're taking a picture posing, and he's throwing the finger. I would have been slapped by my mother and father at that age if I had done anything like that to him, especially to embarrass them in that fashion.
Yeah. When I looked at that picture, it was one of the most disturbing things I had ever seen. I dare to say it was not only child abuse, but child sexual abuse in that picture. And when I looked at that picture, like I said in my own video I made on it, we saw two generations lost here. We saw not only the mother's generation lost, we saw the boy's generation lost as well. And this whole picture just shows us what happens when we've gone 50 years without a father in the home. Because when there's a father in the home, or a father present, or male authority present, the women understand that there's a standard for their behavior. And in my day, my mother would never want to be in the bathroom with me.
No,
No, it would just
I
not be
wouldn't want them in
accepted.
there either.
No, it would just not be accepted. But this woman never learned anything about boundaries, and never learned anything about how to carry or conduct herself. I mean, one of the big problems that I see with this one young woman and her boys is they're looking for this attention online because they're not getting their emotional needs met from a father. Because what a father does, in addition to providing structure in the home and discipline in the home by setting rules and boundaries, he also nurtures his daughters. And when he nurtures his daughters, they get their emotional needs met. And because they're getting their emotional needs met, they're not out here seeking attention from other people online. And they're not seeking the approval of others because they're getting their emotional needs met from their father. And when I looked at that picture, it just showed me, this young woman was not really nurtured by a man. And women don't understand that fathers play an important role in nurturing their daughters. And this is a part of their development as a woman, is being nurtured by that man and being shown love by that man, because that's the model for manhood that teaches her what to look for in a husband. But they're not getting their emotional needs met. So they're looking to get this attention from the outside. And what was even more disturbing about that picture, in addition to this woman looking for this attention, was the fact that she really did not understand boundaries. And this was what's really troubling, was she didn't understand. She was teaching her sons not to understand what boundaries were. And I ran into a lot of these kind of guys when I was in junior high school back in the 80s, did not understand what boundaries are. And these young men, they were being set up for failure in these homes because they never learned what boundaries were. And when you look at that situation where these boys see that their own mother twerking, pulling down her pants, just complete violations of boundaries as related to not only her safety and their safety, the boys are learning a model that they don't have to respect a woman's personal space.
Right.
So these boys are learning sexual deviancy from their mother, and they're going to go outside of their home, and these boys are being set up to take a trip on the prison pipeline to become sex offenders, because if they think it's okay to put their hands on their mother, then they're going to think it's okay to put their hands on another girl. And that's why I not only believe child protective services need to come in, you may even need the FBI to come in, because that video right there, that's borderline child pornography. And sadly, most people, they're appalled by this, but they don't understand that if we keep allowing women to get passes for this kind of behavior, it's going to have an impact on our society. Because again, like the old African proverb says, a race can rise no higher than the moral position of its woman. And as your woman goes, so goes your race. And if you look at that, if this is just her son and cousins in there, this is four boys who have learned dysfunction. And if you have boys like
They
this,
learn to be thugs.
yeah, they've
She's
learned.
teaching them to be thugs, and she's promoting thought culture.
Yeah, she's not only teaching them to be thugs,
You
she's
know,
teaching them to be future sex offenders,
be
and
criminals. Yeah.
she's setting those boys up for failure. And we don't see where this is going. That's like, and it's like I said in my own video, these boys are being sent straight to hell with this type of behavior, because once you get a record as a sex offender, you're practically done here in
Oh yeah.
Western society.
Right.
And
You are.
these
If
boys are being set up. I mean, from day
when
one.
you get a sex offender, if you once you're put in the sex offenders registry, you're done.
Yeah,
That's worse than even being in prison,
yeah,
because you're not, first and foremost, you got to let everybody know you're moving into the neighborhood. You can't participate in anything dealing with children. That means even your kids' graduation. You can't be anywhere near a school, a library, anything like that. And then on top of that, good luck trying to find work,
yeah,
because that's on your record. You saw what happened with the Brian Banks story, that movie that came out in 2019, and how his life was essentially ruined by that lie
yeah,
that heifer told on him. So certainly you're gonna have to, certainly she is setting those boys up for failure in their life, and I, I'm hoping, if the father was there, he didn't know about it, that he know, but I can't imagine if he was there, because would they even be in a position like that? Because if a man comes, if there's a man in the house and he's correct, things like that, I'm not going to say he's watching all the time, but there's some type of respect that
yeah.
a lady would have,
But
not to do that,
because as a guy who grew up around men, I understand there's a boundary. There are rules. You don't go in the bathroom with a girl. I mean, you don't go in the bathroom with your mother. There's a line that you just
right,
don't cross. I mean, when you grow up and you're raised properly, you learn there's certain places you don't go, and you learn that when a woman is in the bathroom, that's her private time, that's her private space. And when a daughter is raised right, yeah, she may dance and have a little fun in the bathroom when she's doing her hair or something, but she's not going to go put a camera on and start twerking, because she understands this not only reflects badly on her, it reflects badly on the family. And you're not only embarrassing yourself, you're embarrassing the family. So the problem, we have a complete collapse of the black family unit. And that was right shown to us in that video, just how bad the black family has fallen. I mean, I remember again, where there was a structure, there was family rules. I mean, unwritten social rules for how you carried and conducted yourself. And there's certain things you just did not do. And when I looked at that picture, it just again showed me what happens when you have over 50 years of black women following feminist culture. We see a complete destruction of the American family, and these boys again set on the road to becoming future
quick,
sex offenders
quick
if we don't have a
question.
male intervention.
Quick question for you: if the roles were reversed and that was a man and four girls, do you think that father would be in jail?
He would definitely be in jail, because under our gynocentric system, he would be in prison right now, and people will be talking about taking the children away. But because we live in a gynocentric society, what happens is we give women a pass like this, not understanding how giving these women a pass in a society that's supposed to be equal only makes things worse for not only boys but girls as well. Because again, when you have boys like this who are not taught boundaries, they become future sex offenders. And this is something that you can't give a woman a pass on, because these boys, they definitely, as I see it, desperately need male intervention, and they need a man to teach them how a boy is supposed to conduct himself. They really need a father. They need male figures to get in here and try to help these boys, because clearly their mother just isn't in a place where she understands how to teach these boys how to carry and conduct themselves as men.
Guys, please smash up the like, share, and subscribe. Please like, share, and subscribe this channel, and also please donate to the Cash App. Gavin Richard Esquire. We have Shawn James, the brother and author of the book The Man Crisis and the John Haynes series that is on with us. Y'all can check out his books on Amazon.com. I want to just move on quickly because I know that you have to. I think you said you could just do an hour with
No,
me.
I can do a little bit more. I can do a little bit more. I mean,
Okay, well, I want to move it along too because I want to get ready to do some stuff too. But yeah, but okay, cool. We'll keep it rolling. I Since we're talking about a year in review, of course, in 2020, that is our topic. I want you all in the chat to tell me how 2020 has been for you, if you could describe it in one word, and also what is your New Year's resolution if you have one. Some people make the same New Year's resolution every year and don't accomplish it. I'm trying to do something different. I think my New Year's resolution would be to make 2021 a much far successful year than 2020, and things are going to get better. I'm in the music business as well. I'm writing songs and doing things of that nature. I have some stuff. I was trying to actually debut it for New Year's, but I'm trying to make sure it's perfect. I know we want to make sure we have the right product out before everything's announced. So perhaps within the next week or two, you'll hear the stuff I've been working on. I'm happy to share it with you all. And also, I have my spice company that I've created. So if I had to say, I would be increased entrepreneurship. That's my main goal. Um, you know, and continuing with this year in review, of course, we have lost so many people. We're talking about men in the man crisis. One man, I got to talk about him. He passed away on yesterday, and that he's not may not be a star in the likes of a Brad Pitt or George Clooney or Will Smith, but this brother, of course, is Mr. Joe Clark, who was the principal of East Side High. Of course, we all know him from the movie Lean on Me, was based off of his life and story. Uh, Someone had asked me, Shawn, Black Mom said, "What genre of music? It's R&B." Of course. Someone had asked me, Shawn, if a man like Joe Clark would be accepted today. I told him in short, no, because our country right now, not only with just political correctness, but we are, uh, as you said, gynocentric society. We are a society uh, that unfortunately we look down on strong black men, and so I certainly don't think Joe Clark would have survived. Uh, in this era of Time's Up and Me Too. Not to suggest he did anything like that, but I don't think he would have, I don't think his methods would have been approved.
Well, back I was around 14 years old in 1988 when Joe Clark first was covered by the mainstream media. And I remember people didn't like Joe Clark back then. And they didn't like him because he was a strong positive image of black manhood and black masculinity. And they tried to demonize him back then. I remember when I was 14 years old, everybody was in the media was trying to make him some sort of bad guy. But as a kid who grew up in a household with, strict authoritative parents, and I understood what Joe Clark was trying to do. He was trying to instill discipline. He was trying to establish structure because he understood that these kids who were going to these schools, they were being set up for failure. I mean, that's one of the things I learned when I was growing up in my own home was a lot of these schools, they set you up for failure. They'll sit there and they'll patronize you. They will just tell you what you want to hear, and then they'll just watch as you fail. But Joe Clark didn't want to see these kids fail. He understood that these schools were going to become prison pipelines, and he was trying to help these kids. And people didn't like the idea of this black man being a leader. They didn't like the idea of a black man being an authority figure. They didn't like the idea of a black man using his power to help other black people. They wanted to see Joe Clark be this black male who would just sit here in his administrative position, collect his check, and not really care about the kids. But Joe Clark understood that these kids had to go out into the real world, and he didn't want to see them take a trip down that prison pipeline. And
Right.
many of these people in the education system, they wanted to get rid of Joe Clark because they thought they were going to get one of these suit-wearing Negroes who was just going to sit here and just go along to get along. But they saw that they had a black man in front of them, and that's why they wanted to demonize him and make him the bad guy. I mean, back then he was dealing with heat, and today he would be dealing with the same heat because the same white supremacists and same black bootlegs who didn't like Joe Clark back then because he was disrupting their system by presenting a positive image of black manhood, they would have a problem with him today for the same reasons because they just don't like the idea of a heterosexual black man being a leader, being an authority figure, establishing standards for the people who he has working for him, establishing standards for his community. They don't like Joe Clark because he is one of the ideals for black manhood. And back when I was a kid, people made him out to be the bad guy. And as I got older, I started to appreciate
His
Joe
methods.
Clark because he was an example of true black manhood and what it meant to be a man, because a man takes charge, he establishes standards, he doesn't worry about other people. He understands that if he doesn't take charge and establish these standards, there won't be anything there. And I went to schools where there wasn't anything there. And there's a big difference between a Joe Clark running things and showing you order and a place where these people are just letting things go by and there's nothing but chaos all around you.
Well, let me say this too about let me say this about Joe Clark. Joe Clark, I actually met him. My family and I met Joe Clark in the early 90s. His daughter, Joetta, was participating in the Olympic tryouts at that time. And this had to have been 1991, 1992, because the Summer Olympics was in Seoul, Korea, I believe, in 92. So I remember it. He was sitting right next to us, and my father, we all spoke to him. He was very nice, and he was cheering his daughter on. So I'll never forget that. I unfortunately don't think I ever took a picture or anything like that, but I was about 5 or 6 years old. But I remember that performance by Morgan Freeman, which he was not he didn't even win an Oscar for that, which was shocking. I guess it's not shocking when you look at it, the Oscars, but that was certainly an Oscar-winning performance, especially when he and Benson, Robert Guillaume, are going back and forth and talking about how we are being pushed into a permanent underclass, referring to the black community. And you certainly see that today. So Joe Clark was ahead of his time. If it was 1992, no, Black Mama says, yeah, 1988 was Seoul, Korea. You're right. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Because I remember Seoul, Korea, that was infamous for the Roy Jones fight where he was lost a decision, even though he beat the Korean opponent very badly, to the point that that opponent even apologized, and uh, the monks there actually held a ceremony for Roy Jones, apologizing for what happened because they found out that they had paid those judges off. But yeah, 1988 was Seoul, Korea. Barcelona was, okay, 1992. That's correct. So, but Joe Clark, getting back to Mr. Clark, he certainly was ahead of his time. By the way, he was also, that discipline comes from his time as a drill sergeant in the United States Army. So kids needed an authoritative figure, especially when your school is filled with drug dealers and pushers. And he didn't play. He expelled 300 students and faculty, if I'm not mistaken, as a result of that. He was trying to protect the students that wanted to learn. I think that was a great thing. And, we often don't like it when black men speak up. We think that their methods are harsh. We think that they're bullies. But I think Mr. Clark was trying to instill discipline. I see what he did, and it was obviously successful to the point where he was offered a position in the White House. Ronald Reagan himself offered him an administrative, uh, you know, an administrative position as a result of that. That says it right here. If you read just very briefly, it says that uh, Clark was born in Georgia on May 8th, 1938. His family moved north to Newark, New Jersey when he was 6 years old. After graduating from Newark Central High School, Clark received his bachelor's degree from William Patterson College, a master's degree from Seton Hall University, and an honorary doctorate from the United States Sports Academy. He served as a United States Army Reserve Sergeant and a drill instructor. He is survived by his children, Joetta, Hazel, and JJ, and grandchildren, Talitha, Jarrell, and Hazel. His wife, Gloria, preceded him in death. Uh, it also says that the county of the school Clark taught at is in Passaic County, not Essex County, but Eastside High School was in Paterson, New Jersey. So he expelled 300 students in a single day for fighting, vandalism, abusing teachers, and drug possession. That lifted the expectations of those who remain, continually challenging them to perform better. And of course, uh, he was called Bat. He used to say they used to call me Crazy Joe, now they call me Batman, which is what that's what we all remember from that line that Morgan Freeman said in Lean on Me. And so many people. So rest in peace to Joe Clark and so many other people. I'm seeing. Dan Marianne died to the right from Gilligan's Island from COVID-19, and 2020 has been a year where a lot of people, Sean, have unfortunately have passed away. We remember we're doing 2020 in review, guys. Uh, you know, Chadwick Boseman was, of course, we talked about Kobe Bryant earlier, but then Chadwick Boseman. We lost friends and relatives from COVID-19.
Yeah.
Uh, kind of like the year of death, man. But uh, damn near. And today, someone told me FMF Doom, the hip hop artist, died.
Yeah, just came up on Twitter a couple
Yeah,
of hours ago. We've lost a lot of great people, and a lot of people lost family members. It was a very tragic year, I just have to say.
yeah. Some people that, of course, this is on People Magazine. They have a list of people who have passed away. I just said Dawn Wells from Gilligan's Island. That's an old. That's before my time, but I used to watch it when it was in syndication when I was when nothing else was on. I mean, I watched shows like that, and I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched as a kid.
I used to
Uh,
watch all those in the mornings with summertime all the
yeah,
time.
same here. I remember the old Batman with Adam West.
I remember all those. I used to watch those. I remember when Adam West came on like 3 o'clock, 3:30 on Channel 5, and I used to watch all those. They used to put them on for kids all the time. And this was before the days of cable. It was like local TV. You just watch them in syndication.
Yeah, all of those shows that came on, we watched in syndication. Of course, we lost the brother Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick, of course, he has a Netflix movie he did, Ma Rainey's Big Black Bottom, which is his final appearance. They said he did a phenomenal job with that. Uh, Also, trying to think, man, so many people that passed away. I'm trying to think of. Was it Eddie? Didn't Eddie Van Halen pass away?
Yes, he did. Sadly,
Yeah,
we lost one of the greats of rock music.
yeah. Well, you know, he was on Beat It. He was the his riff,
His guitar solo.
his guitar solo and riff was on there. Yeah. Of course, we lost brother Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, we lost an icon for this generation. The kids lost one of their icons. Everybody
Uh,
knows him as the Black Panther.
yeah. Sean Connery, James
Yeah,
Bond, the original James Bond, died. You know, and I mean, of course, he lived a good life, though. I mean, he was
yeah,
90 years old. So it wasn't you know, I don't get shocked like that. But stories, of course, when you see somebody young um, like this brother here, like brother
yeah,
Chadwick, you know, that always saddens you because you know that he had a whole life ahead of him. But you know, he kept that illness to himself. And
yeah,
my theory is that the reason why he kept quiet about it is because he didn't want anybody so much worried about him that, but that it also hurt his chances to star in some more movies and make more money. He wanted to look out for his family,
yeah.
look out for his wife. You know, unfortunately, I don't think he has any children, but
He was about to have a child from one report I read. That his wife was pregnant with a child.
what happened? She miscarried.
I don't know. I think she's still got the baby and is about to have it. So
Oh
I,
well, maybe
he might have an heir. So because he got married this year, so
he got married before he died,
yeah,
like right before he died. You know, and who knows? He probably froze his sperm.
yeah.
People are doing that so that they can have an heir. That happens.
But we lost some really great people, and it's sad to see them all go. And so many people lost family members they loved to COVID. And it's just been a year of great loss. And
Yeah. Uh, I saw Pierre Cardin. I'm trying to see if I can pull up Sean Connery. But of course, and you know, Sean Connery was the man back in the day. Especially, I mean, I still watch his stuff. Uh, you know, I still watch not just James Bond, but when he did the Untouchables. You know, I enjoyed that very much. You know, so you want to kill Capone?
yeah, he was a legendary actor. I mean, he had two
Kirk
signature
Douglas.
roles. Yeah, we lost Kirk Douglas, another icon of
Kirk
Hollywood.
Douglas was 102.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a blessed life. If you get into your 90s or more,
yeah,
you know, if someone passes away, I'm not saying it's not a sad thing, because we all, you know, unfortunately, but I mean, that's what it is. We all die someday. You know, it just depends. But you don't want people to worry about how you died. You want people to think about how you live. You know,
yeah. You
you
want
want
them
to
to
live great.
remember who you were and what you did on this earth. So,
Right. Kirk Douglas was 103.
yeah,
That's a
he lived a full life. I mean, he only had 17 more years according to the Bible. He only lived to 120s, but he lived a full life. I mean, he did everything I think God wanted him to do on this earth, and it was just his time. I mean, I think about Kirk Douglas. That was a full, very full life.
Yeah, we lost Walona from Good Times. John Lewis died. Also,
Yeah,
C.T. Vivian, Charles Evers,
yeah,
Medgar Evers' brother, civil rights icons. I, you know, and I have my issues with John Lewis and those civil rights, some of those civil rights leaders, but I don't wish death on anybody. And you
no,
know, I do respect that.
I,
I
I,
didn't respect him as a
yeah,
politician, but
I do respect them as people. I mean, I may have issue with what they've done, but I can still say that it's just sad to see
Little
them
Richard,
go. Yeah,
Charlie Pride, yeah, Little Richard died. Also, the brother who was with Uptown Records. Gosh, Andre. Y'all know who I'm talking about? Andre Harrell.
Yeah.
Andre Harrell. Yeah, Andre Harrell died back in May. He actually died the same day as Little Richard. Uh,
Wow.
if I'm not, they died. Well, they died that same weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes death comes in threes. I remember when Michael Jackson died. That same day Farrah Fawcett had died.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't talk about Farrah so much, but it was Michael Jackson, Betty Davis, the civil rights icon. Yeah, Bill Withers. Yes, Charlie Pride. Uh, yeah, man, it's just been. And let me put Charles Evers up. And another thing, this is what tells you about the NAACP. The NAACP didn't even do any type of tribute to Charles Evers, despite the fact that he took over Medgar Evers' position, the local chairman of the NAACP after Medgar was assassinated. And in part, that was done because of Charles Evers' political positions. I suspect Charles Evers openly endorsed Donald Trump, and he actually was seen with Trump. But I respect Mr. Evers because Mr. Evers actually went down to Mississippi by himself with his little arsenal of weapons and said out loud, "I was going to kill one of you sons of bitches," after his brother was murdered. Carol Sutton, yes, Carol Sutton from New Orleans. We actually knew her. She passed away. She went to my family's church. Dave Dinkins, you're the first black mayor of New York, who I know
Yeah.
you're familiar with, Shawn.
Yeah. I'm familiar with him. Sadly, he passed away.
Yeah. As a mayor, how was he?
He was not good at all. I mean, New York practically was at rock bottom when he as a result of him continuing to push these leftist policies, and it hit rock bottom with the murder of Brian Watkins. That's when he decided to actually do something. I mean, black people were killing black people. He had no problem with it. But when the white tourist gets murdered by a gang, that's when he wants to step up. And he could have done something about this, in 2-3 years into his term, but he waits until the white person dies, and then he wants to do something. And that was the defining moment of his career. And it also defined the Democratic Party and their 16-20 years of failure here in the state of New York.
Let's also not forget this brother, Tiny Lister.
Yeah, a legend. We lost a legend with Tiny
I love
Lister.
you, Tiny. We love and miss you, man. I never got to meet Zeus. I knew him as Zeus first before he was Debo.
Yeah, I
Uh,
knew him as Zeus because that's when I saw him on No Holds Barred and with WWF at the time. He was doing Zeus and feuding with Hulk Hogan. But he had a legendary career. I mean, he had over 200 films, and he played so many different roles. I mean, he had a career that was the
he had a
stuff of
career anybody
legends.
could dream of, man. I mean,
Yeah,
he was featured to go from as a kid from Compton and then go wrestling for the WWF with Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. And on top of that, he was doing movies before that. Remember, he
yeah,
was in Armed and Dangerous with John Candy and Eugene
yeah.
Levy.
I
And
mean,
right,
he proved the point that Bruce Campbell talked about in his book, If Chins Could Kill. He said that, it's not about getting the big roles, because if you get movies in small movies, you can have an incredibly long career and make lots and lots of money and do very well. And that was something Bruce Campbell had talked about. And Tiny Lister did that. He went out here. He wasn't the big lead actor in most of his movies, but he had an impact in the movies that he played. And he had a longer and better career than some A-list stars. I mean, more people know who Tiny Lister is than they know some of these A-list guys who have been starring in films and have had lead roles. I mean, everybody knows a Tiny Lister role. And when I remember I was doing the tribute to Tiny Lister in my videos, I just talked about just Zeus, which I knew, and most people knew
yeah,
Debo, but they
I,
talked about 10, 15 other roles he did. So that's why I say he's an icon, because he had a career that spanned
and working
generations.
with, and you think of this too, the names he worked with. He's worked with Quentin Tarantino. He
Yeah,
worked with Samuel L. Jackson, Chris Tucker, Ice Cube. He worked under him for a couple of films. They also had he worked with Jamie Foxx.
yeah,
Uh, he worked for a who's who in Hollywood, and even Michael Jackson with the Remember the Time video. John Singleton.
yeah.
Uh, you know, his brother had a Martin Lawrence. He had a storied career everyone could dream of, and yeah, he's well missed, man. And I see James Earl Moans made a comment about Dinkins. He said he could have been better, but he said crimes began to decline under Dinkins, according to the FBI, and that he made a deal with Disney to clean up Times Square before Giuliani.
I
Uh,
don't know if that's true because I
Mr.
lived
Nine,
I lived there, and Jenkins had made a complete mess of the city, and he did stuff that kind of was just last minute because he was doing stuff last minute to try to save his quest for a second term, but it just didn't work. It wasn't until we got Giuliani's quality of life initiative that we really started to see the city really clean up. Because I remember going down the Times Square and 42nd Street when I was in Park West in the late '80s, and it was a wasteland. I mean, it was just an absolute wasteland of prostitutes, crack addicts. I mean, it was not a place that would anywhere be deemed safe. And this is the New York that was under Jenkins was a complete wreck, but it was handed to him by Ed Koch as a wreck, and then he left it as it was at the rock bottom level because crime was through the roof. I mean, we had 2,000 murders in the city. We had gangs of roaming kids. It was just a complete nightmare of a city to live in. And people want to say, "Oh, David Dinkins did this," but if he did so much, then why did he lose the '93 election? I mean, the '93 election basically was a moratorium on Dinkins and the Democratic Party. I mean, we Jenkins lost that election, and then Governor Mario Cuomo lost the election in '94. Both of them lost because they had let the city and the state practically turn into ruin, and that's what happened. I mean, if they were trying to turn things around, then why did they both lose? In the both Dinkins lost in '93, and you had Cuomo who lost in '94. So I look at it as I was there and I saw what was happening in New York at the time. I saw New York practically fall completely apart. And again, the only thing that Dinkins took action on was when Brian Watkins was murdered. Once Brian Watkins, the white tourist from Utah, was murdered, then he wanted to take action. Otherwise, he was perfectly fine with black people killing other black people. And then you have other people talking about, oh, the crack just went away, but no, the crack didn't just go away because I was there and I saw the crack going on even up into the mid '90s. I saw the crack dealers going on until the Giuliani initiatives came through. I mean, New York was not anywhere near a safe place until I say about '95, '96, when we really started to see the quality of life initiatives going around. But again, if Dinkins was doing so much, then why did he not win that election? I mean, the
his
FBI,
perception is why Dinkins lost.
because both he and Mario Cuomo got destroyed in both of those elections. I mean, people had just had enough of Democrats back then. And I see the same thing happening here in 2021 with de Blasio. I think we might get a Republican mayor, and Andrew Cuomo's days may be numbered as well.
Uh, let's just see. I didn't get to talk about this when we did our last live stream. I did want to mention and shout out uh, to the brother of Ecstasy of Houdini, who passed away before Christmas. I think on Christmas Eve, if I'm not mistaken, around that time on Christmas Day. Shout out to him, his family. I even saw that they're doing a GoFundMe page because they can't even afford his funeral, and that's a damn shame. I just can't understand how so many the money goes quickly. Wherever it is, you would think, but some of these artists get ripped off, like we were talking about earlier about the
Yeah.
music business, and he may have been a victim of that. I mean, Michael Jackson, like we said, he was smart with this stuff, but and some others, but he passed away, and also the brother from Breakin' uh, just passed away as well. Now, I have never seen these movies. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I'll lose my black card for it, but
Well,
uh,
I saw Breakin', and I was a kid when Breakin' actually came to the theaters, and I saw Houdini's videos back in the
I
'80s.
remember who. Yeah, well,
and
what? Right, Shabba-Doo Ranks. Shabba-Doo passed away.
and it was sad.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
And I remember Houdini, and it was sad to hear about, him passing. But the way he passed, again, showed the difference between rich and wealthy. Now, he might, when it comes down to rap entertainers back then, they really were not paid that much. And it was just what happened was a lot of these guys, they make a lot of their money from doing tours and stuff. But that takes a lot of wear and tear on your body, takes a lot of wear and tear on your health. And a lot of these guys, they weren't paid that much and they were just trying to build. And I could understand how, excuse me, a guy like Ecstasy could wind up broke because you just they don't, entertainers, rap entertainers usually don't get paid that much from the beginning, especially a lot of the early rappers like Houdini. They really were not making that much money. And I can understand what happened to him about him running out of money and then people have to do a GoFundMe because a lot of
Right.
these guys, yeah, they would hit TV platforms because back then rap music really was not out on mainstream TV. I mean, MTV did not really play his music. I mean, when
Right.
I found it, it was on a channel called U68 and on other
On the
channels like
box.
on PBS, like the Box Video Music Box, and they
Or BET. BET
yeah,
had it.
BET. Well, BET, this cable was just starting out back then. I mean, in the '80s, it
Yeah.
was like these small independent platforms were the only way you could get access to this music. And radio stations like 98.7 Kiss, which sadly is no longer here. I mean, there weren't that many places you could hear his music. So a lot of these guys didn't have a chance to get that type of wealth because they were paid a small advance and they had to divide that among about all three of you, the DJ, the MCs, and so there wasn't really wasn't that much money. And a lot of these guys, a lot of them had to make money on these tours. So a lot of these guys, as they got older, the money just they couldn't really build on it and save like a Michael Jackson or a Prince. So I can understand why he would wind up passing away and having to do a GoFundMe. I mean, I've seen the same thing happen to wrestlers like Bam Bam Bigelow, who people thought was flush with cash, but he wasn't. And it happens because yes, people will see you on on TV, but they won't understand that you're on a smaller channel and you're not getting played as much. And Houdini, when it came out, yeah, they were big in 19, I think 84, 85. No, it was 80, 84, 83, 83, 80. It was like 84, 85, I think. And then other groups came by and then they just faded away. So these guys were struggling for over 30 years. And sadly, this brother, he didn't have enough time or enough money to go out here and build a nest egg large enough. And sadly, that's why he had to wind up going to do a GoFundMe because he didn't have enough time. He didn't have the opportunities that other entertainers had because back in the day, a lot of rappers they had to struggle just to get exposure on some of these small platforms.
Well, yeah, I think that they made their well. The way they made their money obviously was through performance, and you
Yeah,
know, even with copywriting some songs. But even back then, when they had their songs, hip hop and rap was thought of as theft by
yeah,
some of the artists. Like even when Sugar Hill Gang, not Sugar Hill Gang, uh, yeah, the Sugar Hill Gang came out with Rapper's Delight. That was based of course off of Chic's Good Times song, and Niles Rogers and Bernard Edwards, to say the least, were uh, not happy about it. And until I guess they put their names on the copyrights and the song started to sell, that's when Niles Rogers actually started performing it because he said it's not a bad song, and it isn't.
yeah,
Uh, I, of course, like I said, I didn't grow up with. I was born in '86, so
yeah,
Houdini was a little bit ahead of my time. They were already, they were past their prime around that point.
yeah.
Or
by that time, by '86, we had
Gangster
all
rap started
we
to
had,
come out.
well, gangster rap was '89, but we had what I
It was
call
88. Yeah.
the legendary, the lyricist era. The lyricist era started in about '85, late '85, up until about '89, and that was the peak period of rap and hip hop. That's when we got, guys like Big Daddy Kane's, the Rakims. We got the real diversity with comedy with Biz Marquis, the Kid and Plays. We got
Fresh
all of this
Prince,
Fresh Prince, all this diversity. I
DJ
mean,
Jazzy Jeff. Yeah.
that was the masterpiece period of hip hop. I mean, Houdini was like, I call it like that golden age period of hip hop from about '78 to about '84 or so, when rap was just starting to build its momentum. Guys like the Fat Boys, um, groups like Grandmaster Flash Furious Five, Cool Mo D in its early lyrics, Curtis Blow. These were guys. They were just doing basic raps, but then that lyricist era, and it just brought so much diversity and richness. I mean, that was an amazing period. I grew up in that period, and that's when we got New Jack Swing, where you had R&B mixing with rap, and that was, as I see it, the most creative period. And then we got the gangster period, but that also overlapped with the Afrocentric. And again, there was so much diversity in rap, and we don't have that at all these days.
No, there's not hip hop music. I mean, and I do deal with that too. There's someone I know for a fact that even in R&B music, they try to keep like one of the reasons you don't see the old school artists with new songs and new tracks is that they being the record companies try to keep them from uh, putting new stuff out
Yeah,
from time to time. And I believe it was New Edition even talked about that. Why you don't see their stuff anymore is because the record companies think they're just too old and they play their old stuff, but not putting out the new stuff that they have that they're working on. Uh, you know, I know
some
he's past his prime, but someone like Stevie Wonder, it was just announced this year. Here's another thing in review that he was leaving Motown. And he was
yeah,
uh, their longest serving artist on that label because he wants to start his own label. And of course, I mean, damn, he's been there forever.
yeah. But a lot of guys are finding that they can start their own thing, put their stuff up on iTunes and other platforms, and make the money themselves. And
And
that's the
see,
way you get found these days, because
they,
sticking with a record label, I mean, people don't buy records, they buy songs. And I've heard, several goth YouTubers who make music, they say they just put songs out there and let the songs get found. They don't sit there and play the records, because the records is like 7, 8 songs. And you have to actually, when you're doing a record, there has to be a theme. You have to build a story with the music, and that's what Michael Jackson used to do. Each song fit within a theme, and it allowed the album to flow from one song to the next. So there's a lot of work that goes into an album. You're not just recording songs. You have to make sure that each song flows into the other song so that people don't get bored or see that there's a bad track. And a lot of producers today, they don't really do that type of effort to say, look, we need to make sure that this song flows into this song flows into the next song, and that it all tells a story and sells the album. Because that's why it's easier to sell songs, because if you building an album is a lot of work, because you have to make sure that each track flows into the others and keeps and gives people a listening experience. And then you also have to strategically release the singles so that they can start building momentum and as related to the top 40. That was something I learned watching radio shows like Casey's Top 40 back in the 80s when Casey Kasem was alive. A lot of producers, they would release singles one after the other just to make sure that these songs could build, because that's how you sell the album. And selling the album is about making sure that each single you release, the first one has a strong first
a
impression.
strong first impression, and you have a few others that are strong, or a few
Yeah,
others that are strong, or may not be number one, but they'll make the
they'll make the
100.
top 40, and they'll make
They'll
and
make
at least make the top 10. That's how people like Paul Abdul became superstars. That's how George Michael and guys like that became superstars, because they knew how to strategize as related to building that album and then building those single releases. And
Right.
that's how you sell millions of units as related to selling records. But these days, people sell songs, and that's how they get around that, because
Well,
today,
yeah, it's easier now to just sell a song on iTunes. But I saw this as well. I reported this yesterday that some of the top songwriters, it was in the BBC article, songwriters in the world are driving Ubers now because they're not making or seeing the money uh,
yeah,
due to the fact that the record labels are sitting on it.
yeah,
So you had Niles Rodgers talks about it. He said how he had to have an audit of his record company and saw the monies that was owed to him.
yeah,
Uh, in order to get that, just because. But now, yeah, if you can go independent, you got to promote the shit too, because
yeah,
that's another thing. You got to spend money on promoting it, but you go and promote it, and if it catches on, if I'm hoping that this song that I'm doing that'll be released is something that's going to catch on. And I think it's a perfect time for it, given this year of 2020 that we've all been going through. But yeah, so that's something that a lot of people, especially fellow musicians, should keep in mind. Um, yeah, man, it's just crazy, that they do stuff like that. You're driving Uber and you're a hit songwriter. You know,
but it's happened to actors and songwriters before. I mean, these companies, they do people really dirty, and that's why so many people these days just they don't even bother with them anymore. I mean, as a publisher myself, that's one of the reasons why I walked away from traditional publishing companies, because these companies will once they're making money off you, it's fine, but as for paying you, it's like in some cases, especially when you become older and your catalog starts to get older, it's impossible to get the money out of them. I mean, it's sometimes that's why people just say, look, I'm just going to walk away from them and just go build my own, because it's just easier for me to do that, because at least I own everything and I can take the catalog elsewhere if it's not performing the way I want, because I can go from company to company. So that's why you see a lot of guys doing iTunes, Spotify, and all these other things, because they go, it's just not worth it to deal with these oligarchs, because these oligarchs they don't really care about the creators. They just want to build their empire with your bricks, and then they don't even want to support you with those bricks.
yeah. Another topic, I guess I'm trying to just get through them quick, but of course, COVID is with us now. That was obviously the number one thing we've had to deal with because the whole country was on lockdown, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, some of the stuff that we've seen churches that have been closed as a result of it, especially in places like California and New York. Uh, and we're seeing shutdown methods that were enacted in different states. Some businesses choosing that, unfortunately, especially small businesses, they closed down permanently as a result of it. You live up in New York. You said you're not pleased with DeBalsio and Cuomo, and you think that they are going to be voted out. But that was a number one thing for me. And tying that into this election that happened, and I guess the election would be the second thing, because now Donald Trump's term in office is coming to an end, and we're getting ready for uh, Pimp Daddy Biden.
Mhm.
That's coming in there. I say that because when we did the phone call with the black leaders, that's exactly what it sounded like, a pimp talking to his hoes
Yeah.
and talking down on him. So tying that all in, man, what did you think of, I guess, just if you can, about this COVID thing when it happened, and how's it going to go so far in this new election and this
Well,
new presidency?
Well, I think the way we handled COVID was it was a disaster from minute one. And it was a disaster not because of Donald Trump, like many people want to say, but I say there was a lot of hands that messed this up badly. I always go back to the World Health Organization with their inconsistency. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we would have probably learned more about this virus in the beginning, but the World Health Organization practically failed as an organization. It's supposed to protect people's health, but they were so caught up in, again, what I call the Trump obsession, that they didn't want to report objectively. And then we had our own politicians here who, when Donald Trump did do something, and he didn't really do enough because he closed the borders with China because he was caught up in racism. But we also had the left talking about how it was a racist and how he shouldn't have done that. And then he left the openings for Europe, and that's how the virus got through. So there's blame to go all around with this whole COVID thing in America. And we also have to look at many of the local politicians and national politicians and experts like Dr. Anthony Fauci, who screwed up because they
Yes, big
fo-
time.
they followed this theory of, oh, we'll lock things down, not understanding how America's economy works and not understanding people's mental health. And they made a bad situation worse because what they did was follow this theory of flattening the curve. And that theory, when I heard about it in March, I knew it wasn't going to fail because I knew that any type of theory to flatten the curve, what's going to happen is you're going to have an artificial decline that would be short term, but eventually the numbers would ratchet
And
up
now you have
in the long term.
a new strain that they said has now arrived in the United States. So I can imagine if there's a new strain, the mutated one that they said from England is now here. I can imagine now what a Biden presidency may be, where he would, of course, he can't himself mandate a lockdown because of the 10th Amendment, but federal agencies certainly can be locked down, and there are emergency powers. I know, especially with FEMA, that they may try to implement, and you see that here with the different states, like you said, in New York, where you're from, where they have shut down businesses. Uh, that's going to be very interesting. So I'm hoping 2021 gets on a good foot. But if
Yeah.
that thing is already here, that was in 2020. I
But
can
there's
imagine what's going to happen if it gets out of hand.
But as I see it, there's nothing they can really do because if you keep going on this trajectory, you're going to run out of money to run your economy. Because America's economy is one where it's a
Definitely.
consumer-based economy and it runs on service businesses. And the longer those businesses are out of business, there's no tax revenue coming in. So if there's no tax revenue, there's no money to pay for municipal services, and those include hospitals. So you're eventually going to reach a point where your economy it just isn't going to function and you're not going to be able to pay medical professionals, and that's going to lead to a further increase of COVID-19. So the approach we're using, we don't understand this flatten the curve approach has been a complete failure from minute one. But most Americans, they have this stubbornness where they never want to admit when something isn't working. So whenever they see something not working, they try to do more of the same. I'm understanding that's a definition of insanity. And we can't afford another lockdown because what we would do is practically you've already got states who are already in debt, and this would practically bankrupt the entire country. And then you wouldn't get any medical care because, again, you don't have any people paying taxes, one, and you have two, you have people who don't have money for health insurance. So you're at a point where your economy is on the brink, and to continue going on this approach, it's not stopping COVID-19. If we look at California, it's just getting worse. And they're still trying to use this lockdown approach, and it's just not working. And as I see it, it's just time to do a different approach because this approach, it just doesn't work because it's a short term flatten the curve as related to the statistics as related to COVID 19. But in the long term, it really does not have an impact because once all the people start going back outside, then the numbers go back up again. And what you're doing is following a vicious cycle that eventually not only does damage to your economy, but also does damage to people's mental health because the more you have people who are isolated, what it happens is their mental health deteriorates, and that's why we're seeing this rise in suicides nobody wants to talk about, the rise in drug addiction, the rise in domestic violence. I mean, the cure for COVID has done more damage to people than the disease. But most Americans, they want to believe Fauci and his theory, not understanding his theory has already been disproven, and his theory is destined to fail and to continue applying the same approach. is just insane because he already himself has already been proven a liar. He says he's moving the goalpost as related to herd immunity. So we need a new approach, and I don't really see a new approach coming from Biden. He's still trying to follow this guy, not understanding his theories are failures, and his theories just don't work. I mean, it's time for a new approach, and sadly, I don't see us getting a new one, but we desperately need a new one because if we continue going on this one, there may not be an America left in 2022.
I mean, it's even been disproven that masks don't protect you from this too.
No, I've read
But
several New
yeah,
York Times
I read
articles.
articles on that.
I've read several New York Times articles talking about how masks don't work, and they don't because this virus is a micron smaller than the masks. So this is all an exercise in futility. It reminds me of an episode of Star Trek Voyager I watched where the crew was trying to do everything in its power to escape this entity, and the entity even possessed the captain and told them to do nothing. And the more they did, the further they got back. But the minute they did nothing, the entity pushed them several light years ahead and they were able to move on. So when I look at the approach that people are doing, it reminds me of that episode of Voyager where they keep trying to do stuff and it's just pushing them further back. And maybe, I don't know, the theory of doing nothing may have more of an impact than anything we've done so far.
Sean, I want to talk to you about Harris. I said that on purpose because I honestly don't know if Biden is going to be, well, if Biden will be president for a long time. If I had wanted to know what were your thoughts. I should say future president Kamala Harris. I know that a lot of people don't like it. I don't like it either, care for her either. But when President-elect Biden gets in, and of course he has Vice President Harris. One of the things I've noticed, and I don't know if you saw this video that had over 2 million views. Did you see the Kwanzaa?
I saw that comedy hour, and that was just a picture of complete insanity. I mean, how is a non-black person celebrating a pseudo-black holiday? I mean, that was a picture that is certified for Arkham Asylum when I saw it. When I saw Kamala Harris, excuse me, talking about how she's celebrating Kwanzaa and how she's always
With her
celebrated Kwanzaa
family,
with her
which
family.
doesn't make any sense. Back then, she said as a little girl how they
Yeah,
used to celebrate it.
how can you celebrate a holiday you were never that wasn't even founded
Kwanzaa.
when you were?
Let me celebrate Kwanzaa. Hello,
I'm here.
I said, have you ever celebrated Kwanzaa?
No,
It
because
wasn't popular.
no, and that was just a lie. And if she becomes president, I see a lot of lies being told. I mean, people talking about Trump being a liar. This woman is a certified liar. I mean, she says she celebrated a holiday that wasn't even around when she was born, and it was it was just it's like you're saying that you celebrated something that never even came. And it's just like her talking about how she listened to rap music that wasn't even invented yet. I mean, this woman is a liar and it's in her face, but the mainstream media,
Yeah,
because
I think she was. I
she's
think when she
somebody
was
they like,
celebrating
they give her a
Kwanzaa,
pass.
Tupac. Well, yeah, of course they give her a pass because all they look at is the fact that it's not Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump, and Donald Trump. If you look at it from an honest, objective standpoint, he is not a true Republican in the sense. While he has his faults, he is not tied to the banking cartel that
No,
has corrupted our elections for some 200 years. He's not part of that. He's a populist. And that's why a lot of people, you see people rebelling about this election. People think that it was stolen. I don't know if you believe it was stolen. It looks like, I mean, Biden did not have a lot of people coming out to support him, like talking about it. But, nevertheless, they're clearing the way for him. I've seen different videos. I've seen from Brother T West how they're able to steal elections, but that's another story. But the reality is, it looks like this is something that's going to happen. He's going to be president, and they've stolen elections before. Let's be real. We even accused
yeah,
Bush of stealing the election, and I know he did that. But nevertheless, I look at they're coming in, and she's telling an outright lie, and that she celebrated Kwanzaa when her family, which is Hindu Brahmin, they do not even, they have clear animosity and bias towards black people to begin with. So why would she celebrate a holiday which was founded by an agent, by the way?
Yeah.
Ron Karinga is an agent. That's this rumor, but I certainly wouldn't care for. I certainly can't care for this woman, and I hope nobody's taking her serious.
I don't take her serious. I just see her as a pathological liar, and this is a lie
Right.
being told to you to your face. And the sad, well, I look about the Biden presidency, it's going to be a lot of gaslighting, and this gaslighting is starting right now. I mean, he's just telling you one lie after the other. I mean, he told a lie talking about Donald Trump didn't roll out the vaccine fast enough, and I sat there, I said to myself, it's called Operation Warp Speed, and we just got this vaccine a week ago, and
Like
he's saying
so
it's not
many
going
other
fast enough. And I
holidays,
said
we
that's
will
just
be
not
celebrating
logical.
Kwanzaa a little differently this season in our
Yeah,
home.
and
We'll be
that's the
doing it
message.
over Zoom. You know, my sister and I, we grew up celebrating Kwanzaa.
Oh
Every
God.
year, our family would, and our extended family, we would gather around across multiple generations, and we tell stories. The kids would sit on the carpet, and the elders would sit in chairs,
You think she knows the
and we would
seven
light the
principles? Did they at
candles, and of
least teach her
course,
that?
afterwards, have a beautiful meal. And of course, there was always
You
the
asked her to
discussion
say
of the
Coochie
seven
Chocolate. I don't know if
principles.
she could
And
say
my
it.
favorite, I have to tell you, was always
Gotta I'll tell you
the
what
one
it
about
is.
self-determination, Kuji Chagalia.
Oh,
And,
they taught
essentially
her
it's
that one.
about, it's about be
What's the
and
first
do.
one?
Be the person you want to be and do the things you
How long
want
you
to
think
do
they
and
took
do the
them to
things
tell
that
her
need
that?
to be done. It's about not letting anyone write our future for us, but instead going out and writing it for ourselves. And that principle motivates me today as we seek to confront the challenges facing our country and to build a brighter future for all Americans. So, to everyone who is celebrating, happy Kwanzaa from our family to yours.
Shut the hell up.
That was the video of a psychopath, because when you look at the facts, and I just googled the psychopath, the facts here. Kwanzaa was started in 1966, and your Kamala Harris was born in 1964. So how can you say you celebrated something
With me, Talk
when
Talk.
you were
Hey,
only
little
around
ones.
2 years
Since
old?
the teen and never grew to normal size, you ready to follow my grind?
Right.
Yeah, Hawk.
Well, the thing is, I hate when those ads come up. Well, the thing is that she is still trying. She's Pander Bear, not
Yeah,
Panda, not Panda, Pander, the
yeah.
Pander Bear, because she is doing so much pandering right now. It's not even funny.
Not understanding when you pander, you come from a weak position, and her position is so weak. I just tore it apart right there. I mean, 1966, Kwanzaa starts,
She was
and
born in '65.
yeah, she's born 60. It says 64 here.
Okay, 64. So she would be 2 years old.
Yeah. So, and
I
her
can
mother,
remember celebrating Christmas as young as 3, but I can't remember. Yeah.
and her mother is supposed to be an Indian. So, and we see her dressed in Indian garb when she's younger. So this does not fit consistently with her picture. So that's why I say she's a psychopath, because it's like you're telling a lie to us with a straight face and trying to make us believe it, but I know that it's a lie.
Most definitely. Uh, I want to just talk quickly about our last topic, Shawn, before we get out of here. Uh, I appreciate you, brother. You guys smash up the likes. Also, donate to the Cash App, Gavin Richard Esquire. Yeah, it was a proven lie, but you got people who will defend her no matter what. People that like her because, hey, she's a AKA. She's went to Howard, and of course, we got a lot of white people that go to HBCUs now. So that shouldn't matter. But what should matter is, what are your policies? What are your thoughts? What do you want to do for our people? Last topic is that it has been the year of the Karen as well. Uh, and, honestly, about an oath on Kwanzaa, we really didn't celebrate it. The only time I ever celebrated it was at church, was in 1997, and that's when it really was popular in the night when it started to pick up in the 90s because they commissioned the first Kwanzaa stamp
Yeah,
under
it
Bill
was starting to
Clinton
become
in
popular in the
1997.
90s,
You can go look at
but
that.
most people don't
It
even
started
know
to
it
become
exists.
popular in the 90s.
Yeah.
What?
Well, see, it started to become popular in the 90s, but the other thing that's hilarious about Kwanzaa is created by Ron Karenga, who was married to a white woman, and it's a hilarious holiday.
Yeah, I mean the principles of it. Yes, they sound great on paper, but Karinga, I just know from Judge Joe Brown, he says Karinga was an agent that got his friends killed, like Buncey Carter.
The woman
Yeah.
Now,
accused a black teen of stealing her iPhone.
you've seen this, and Sean, I think
She
you did
claimed
a
in an
video
interview
on.
she had been attacked.
Now,
But police
they
say
found the
new
name of
video
this
appears to
woman
show
too.
her
Yeah.
attacking the 14-year-old before running out of the
Her
hotel in
name
Soho.
is Maya
Eyewitness News reporter
Ponsetto.
Derek Waller with more.
New video from the NYPD shows that woman go on the attack, tackling that 14-year-old boy she falsely accused of stealing her cell phone. Later, she's seen falling over. It's that surveillance video.
Maya Ponsetto, that is her. She's from Simi Valley, California. She's 22, 21 years old. Um, some people, the internet is merciless because they already pulled up her record. She had, I think, a criminal record, if I'm not mistaken. And what you notice in this, uh, with this news, and especially even on CNN, they did not release her name, even though CNN did the interview with her. They did not release her name. So
From
the
the
New York
Arlo
Post did it.
Hotel, Keon Harold's parents say, shows the hotel management mishandled the incident.
After the hotel helped the lady retrieve her phone, they did not have a security ask her to wait for the police, which they said they called.
No, I'm not letting him walk away with my phone.
This is the video that initially went viral. The hotel apologized, but acknowledges they could have done more. The woman still not charged with a crime, but NYPD sources say they know who she is. And in fact, CNN says they got her on the phone, where she claims she was injured. But outside City Hall Wednesday, jazz
They're playing "We Shall Overcome."
musician Keon Harold Sr. and the Reverend Al Sharpton demanded criminal charges.
We demand full prosecution. We demand, if this woman is saying she was assaulted, put her in the grand jury.
How many people end up in prison forever? How many people end up dead because of mistaken identity, quote unquote, because of wrongfully accused by so many people wrongfully profiled, and this needs to stop.
This morning, Mayor de Blasio also called for charges.
This is a horrible situation. You got a teenager here who did nothing wrong, who was clearly profiled because he was young and male and black. That is racism, pure and simple. That is unacceptable in this city, in this country.
And as the legal process plays out, this woman is clearly already facing some poetic justice in the court of public opinion. It's
All right, that's her. Now, let me just and we can comment on it for a few minutes because we talked about the year to Karen. Of course, we've seen different videos of white women calling police on black men. One incident I know, if it wasn't this year, it was late last year about the black man that was babysitting the two white kids and got stopped by the police. We had black men that were trying to get inside their homes and they would block them. All of this stuff that would happen. Selling water as a kid, you have the police called on you. We had a white woman that pulled her gun out on two kids.
Yeah,
things of that nature. So it's been a year to Karen, but this one they called her. Was it Karen Soto? What's the nickname?
I don't know the nickname.
Well, that area that it happened in.
Karen Soho.
Soho Karen is her name. Soho Karen, and the Arlo Hotel. Kenyon Harold, Kyron Harold, the father of Kenyon Harold Jr. Excuse me. I messed up the butchered the names. Kenyon Harold Jr., of course, was at the hotel, I guess, celebrating Christmas with his dad. They were going downstairs for brunch when this lady accused Kenyon Jr. of stealing her phone. And they kept saying, no, we didn't steal it. They proved it was theirs, but she was adamant. And you saw in the video that she even attacked it. And keep in mind, this is even in an era where we're supposed to be in New York, where you're at, where there's supposed to be social distancing.
Yeah. But when I looked at that incident, it just,
Mandating that you attack this
yeah,
child. And honestly, that father, Keon Harold Sr., he showed great restraint. I know what they would have done if he had put hands on her. The stories
yeah,
would have
that
been
it would have taken us back to Jim Crow. But when I look at this whole situation, it just shows me how gynocentric racism is, because with racism, the white men are always looking to protect these white females. And that's why we have all these Karens out here, is because these white males always want to try to protect the out of pocket and out of control behavior of these Karens. And these Karens are a direct result of them not fathering their daughters, because if they fathered their daughters and taught them how to set boundaries, these women would not be as out of control as they are. And these women, they basically don't know where the line is. And they believe that because they're feeling insecure, and the main reason why they attack so many black men is because they feel insecure about their place in white society, because these white women, they get elevated to this high position. These white men spoil these white women, and these women, they now know that they're getting older and they can't get the attention anymore. So now they want to get their attention by going out here and putting a black man's life at risk. And this woman, if she owned an iPhone, like I own an iPhone, would know that the features on that iPhone there are some as related to the security features, because I've had, excuse me, this iPhone that I got as part of the Shawn James initiative. And this button right here will let you know how this phone works. I mean, you need to have a passcode to get into the phone. And the newer models, you have a fingerprint as related to it, and you also have facial recognition. So these phones have security features that would let you know whose phone that is. But this woman was so caught up in her efforts to try to get attention for herself that she was trying to just racially profile this boy, because she's insecure about the attention that she's getting, that she wanted to put this boy's life at risk to do this. And the beta male manager, instead of him thinking critically and saying, hey, if this something's wrong with this iPhone, what you do is do a phone location, or as in track my iPhone, I have that on this phone. And you also, and this phone isn't even activated. It's just a phone that I use to make my videos with. I have another one that I use. But what you do is you can do that, or the person could have just easily asked what the number is, punched in the number, and saw that it rang. She's got there like, oh, this boy stole this phone, and it's like her timeline makes no logical sense. How can somebody steal a phone that's in an
And you have Find My iPhone if you wanted to do the alert.
yeah,
And let's also look at this thing too with the way the media even's treating us. The media, they're the biggest culprit of stereotypes and racism.
yeah,
They're trying to make it look like they're the heroes in this, but if CNN had her information like they do with us, they would have plastered her picture and name out beforehand, and plastered it 24/7. Instead, they don't do that. They didn't release her name. The cops even didn't release her name, even though you hear the report, they knew who she was. They had
yeah,
enough to charge her right then and there because the manager witnessed it. It was a
yeah,
battery
yeah.
when you touch somebody without their permission. So she should have been arrested immediately. She did not apologize. She's trying to make herself look like the victim. She never apologized to
Yeah.
this child, who she should apologize to this child and his parents, but the child most importantly because he was the real victim in this.
Yes,
Uh,
he was.
but I grow pessimistic when I see Al Sharpton out there, that's not a good sign.
No, it's a sign that, like that other incident with that coward, I forget his name, uh, uh Christian Cooper, that
Christian
coward.
Cooper, yeah.
I mean, had he come out here and set a boundary, these other Karens would have been put on notice. And we really need somebody to stand up and put these white women in line, because these white women, they have been going crazy for the last couple of years. I mean, whether it's Me Too or these Karen incidents, it's all about their insecurity and their feeling of insecurity about getting older, about not being able to get their needs met by white men. And they want to go out here and see a black man done harm to him because they feel insecure. And we really need black men to set a boundary. And that's something that needs to be done, because if we start putting some of these white women in jail for their out of control behavior, then they'll understand that there's legal consequences for their actions. Unfortunately, because America is gynocentric and many of these white males want to protect this white woman at all costs, the reason why she's just so out of control these days is because these men, they don't have the backbone or the stones to check this white female. Just like many black men talk about, they can't check the black female. But these white men, it's on them to check this white woman. And this white woman has needed a hard check for a long time, because either it's her making these allegations against black men with Me Too, like they did against Bill Cosby, or they're out here profiling black men, trying to get black men murdered. Because when I look at these incidents, I don't see them as just an isolated incident. I see them as a chance, an effort to try to return to the days of Jim Crow and lynching. And these incidents are basically like lynchings. It's basically these white women seeing a black man who they don't like seeing. Like, she saw a successful black man and his son, and she wanted to target this successful black man and his son and try to find a way to attack him, because she didn't like the idea of seeing a successful black man and his son in the same hotel as she was. And she wanted to break that black man down, humiliate that black man and his son, and put him in the role that she felt comfortable in, which was a criminal. And that's what she wanted to do in this whole situation, was try to destroy this black boy. And we really, again, need black
This
men.
was a Christian Cooper thing. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
similar to that.
What
Yeah.
we need to do is start standing up. We can't have cowards like Christian Cooper who want forgiveness. No, these women need to be punished, because clearly their father won't punish them. And we really need the court system to punish these women, so that they understand that when you go up against a black man and put his life at risk, you will have to deal with criminal repercussions, and you're going to have to do jail time. And if we give these white women jail time and set that line in the sand, I guarantee you they'll think twice before going and doing these attention-seeking stunts, because these attention-seeking stunts, they are nothing more than the same actions that their great-grandmothers participated in during Jim Crow, when they would lie about rapes and say, oh, this black man did this. They would get that black man lynched, and it would be all about sating their insecure ego so that they could feel better about white men meeting their needs. And if they have those insecurities, then they need to take that up with a psychotherapist and leave us brothers alone.
Most definitely. Well, Shawn is spitting that heat. Most definitely. I see Taisha Essex. Sister said that she would have lost, she would have done a video on this, a recreation, but she got caught up in her emotions, because she said if they had done that in her presence, she would not have allowed them to touch her child. Most definitely. I agree with you. Yeah, Cooper was a coward and a punk, Chris Cooper. You know, not getting the big picture, but he's the type that would put his sexuality above being black. That's my opinion on that. You know, and you see that. And yeah, most definitely we got to protect our sons. I see Taisha Essex. Happy New Year, Black Mama, to the queens that are in here. Taisha, of course, is a guest on this show. I got to have her come back on, and a couple others. So that was the last topic of what I had to say. Of course, I could have mentioned Bill Cosby, with his appeal, but we've covered that.
Yeah.
Of course, that was big news about the appeal. We'll just be waiting, I guess, to see what will happen after that. I did see that Jesse Jackson made a comment where he stated that uh, Bill Cosby should be released from prison. But Jesse had been silent when this stuff was going on from the beginning. Jesse, I know he had been sick, but Jesse, of course, and I've heard some stories about Reverend Jackson I won't get into, but Bill Cosby thanked Jesse Jackson for reaching out and calling for his release. But, I wish that those guys could have done that much sooner.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to hear Jesse asking for Bill Cosby's release, because this travesty of justice really needs to be removed from the system. I mean, as I see it, the legal precedent from this is damaging to all, not only Bill Cosby and black men, but all men in this country. I mean, this has us under this standard of trust and believe, which these Karens have been exploiting. And the trust and believe standard is something that needs to be removed from our criminal justice system, because this trust and belief standard, it basically takes us back to the dark days of Jim Crow. And we really need Bill Cosby released. That's something I hope we see in 2021, because we really have to get that legal standard removed from our legal system. I mean, how with trust and belief, a woman can just say anything or do anything. And that was the standard that the Ku Klux Klan used to lynch black men. And it's now the legal standard for the entire country. And we need to eliminate this standard and release an innocent man like Bill Cosby, who did nothing at all.
Yeah, most definitely. And we'll be monitoring that. And I'm also working on the books as well. Shawn, first off, Happy New Year to everyone. I know in New York it's getting closer to that hour. We got about an hour and
Yeah.
41 minutes left
We got 40 minutes here.
Here in New Orleans. The fireworks are going off around us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I got 40 minutes here, so.
Yeah, y'all got 40 minutes left, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, I always appreciate having you on. God bless.
I enjoy being on. I want to thank you for having me here on the show.
Yeah. God bless you and your family. You want to do a plug-in? This is the time.
All right. Thank you. Well, I've got the books of the fall 2020 catalog, and those include Eternal Night, an African American vampire story, and the book Eastern Blast from the Past. And you can get Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle format. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read this action-packed African American vampire story free on your Kindle or your smart device. And I also have Eastern Blast from the Past, the latest Eastern series book. And this one features a fun bonus feature by Bill Walko, which is written, and the script is written by me, a Eastern No Good Deed comic. And you can pick this one up on Amazon. This is the first comic I'm doing as part of the SJS Direct imprint. It's a sample of what's to come in a comic project I'm trying to get off the ground in 2021. I want to produce my first comic book, so this is one of the stories that will be featured in the comic. So you're going to get a sneak peek of that in Blast from the Past, which is a follow-up to Eastern, The Sands of Time. And I also have the other two books of the 2020 catalog, Isis, The Main Event, and John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose. So a lot of great positive Black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint. And I also do nonfiction like The Man Crisis. You can find all these books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook store, and Google. Well, all of them with the exception of Eternal Night and The Main Event, because The Main Event is Kindle Unlimited. But you can find the other books on other online platforms right now. So I know some people may have gift cards, and that's a great way to support the SJS Direct imprint. And you can give these books a try, and I really would appreciate your support on these books.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Well, always you can plug in here. I got some stuff coming up. I'm still working on my book. It's just taking a little while with work and everything. Sometimes life just hits you like that. But I'm definitely moving forward with that plan as well. Anyway, guys, and also look out for the new music that's coming in. 2021 is going to be bigger and better than ever. I'm trying to stay optimistic with it, and I hope you all stay optimistic too, because God, if you can make it through 2020, you can make it through anything.
Yeah.
You know, and even our grandparents, they had some tough years, and great grandparents, they had tough years. Just think about it. They lived through slavery. Our ancestors. My grandfather lived through Jim Crow. You know, and those were difficult times. My grandfather was born in 1918 when when the Spanish flu epidemic happened. So definitely
Yeah. I
not
mean,
been, I guess, the best year uh, with this virus, with the leaders that have failed us, a whole bunch of things that have just happened, racial profiling. And I forgot to mention the George Floyd thing, too. That was another thing with the uprising that we saw. And I'll just say briefly with that, it's been going on and for a while, but now uh, it exploded in a powder cake. But we got to realize too, we don't even control the leadership in Black Lives Matter, and I've learned too to be careful about those that look like us because they may not be for us. And I notice when I look at Black Lives Matter, and Shawn, you've talked about it, those groups are run by whites.
yeah.
They promote and push LGBT, and they push feminism and most importantly, anti-black male heterosexuality and patriarchy. They're against that, which I can't see how they can be against that because if they didn't have a mother or father, then they wouldn't be here. But nonetheless, that's the stuff that we're dealing with. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. That's right, James Earl Moan. So this, the George Floyd incident, of course, that's probably the top three events that have happened. But if 2020 was just one thing after another, where we got smashed with stuff. But hopefully 2021 will be better. And I look forward to going into 2021 with all of you. And Shawn, come back anytime.
I'll be glad to come back anytime. Whenever you want me to come and do a show, I'll do a show.
Most definitely. Well, guys, that has been 2020, a year in review. You guys, please check out Shawn James's channel, self-entitled channel, Shawn James. Please donate to the Cash App here. Cash App is Gavin Richard Esquire. You see the ticker at the bottom. You also can donate to at gavin.grich1@gmail.com. I mean, the Google Pay, gavin.grich1@gmail.com. And it's good to like this video, share, and subscribe. Of course, YouTube puts their ban on many of the Black commentators, the conscious commentators. Of course, I had to include this shot of the George Floyd thing because that was a top news story back this past summer, if everybody remembers that. But I really believe 2021 will be better. I'm praying that it will be. And it's good to pray and meditate because it makes you feel a little better. And we all need that. We need every help we can get from up above. So, with that being said, guys, I'm out. This has been Shawn James, and this has been Gavin Reshaw with Gavin Reshaw Presents. Happy New Year, or Merry New Year, I should say, rather. Trading places. All right, guys. That's it. Peace, family. Holla. Merry